We are live.
Okay, we are live. This is Senate Finance on May 20th. We are winding down. Committee will probably be catch as catch can from now on. I think we have 2 or 3 bills up there. We're going to try to get out. And so we're going to get Senator around Hinsdale.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, Senator Keisha Ron Hinsdale, Senate Education. We're talking about H650, which is, I would say, the legislature's first attempt at regulating educational technology. If I can use the majority of my first minute to, I don't know if it's preempt or support the testimony of others, I think what you'll hear from a lot of the other stakeholders in the education system is that they feel they are self-regulating well. There is no mandated system. There is no statewide system for overseeing and regulating what educational technology is used in our schools. There are a number of coalitions and labels that are referenced in as we talk about software, but really then it is up to the superintendent, the principal, the IT director, or educational technology director of a school to determine what their kids are going to see and what is age appropriate in terms of that design and that access. The education committee in a unanimous vote felt that was of concern, that it is not being regulated in a way that parents, children, educators are all on the same page about what is a good practice as more and more states look at how to regulate education technology. There are concerns that it may also conflict with the kids code. The certifications or standards you might hear about are the Student Data Privacy Consortium, which is a national organization that looks at student data privacy.
What's that?
I would say between that and ISD certification, which is more about the educational efficacy and is national, you're still talking about industry helping to set the standards for their own regulation. We heard from many health professionals and education professionals who are doing research to demonstrate that those standards really aren't something we as lawmakers or policymakers at the district level can use to say this is a safe product. It is not extracting data or tracking data from our children. And there was very little on educational efficacy. And I went really deep down that rabbit hole of what is good for our kids technology-wise, or what is even neutral for our kids technology-wise. The final thing I'll say is we have an amendment. We haven't had a chance to look at it in education, just given the floor schedule, et cetera. But I've had a chance to talk informally to members of the committee and the chair, and they understand that for the rest of the language to survive, and for us to take a good hard look at what's happening with educational technology in our schools, that we regrettably, I think, take out the chatbot 2-year pause. And make that part of the study instead. We have some changes to the study language so that it's stakeholders and legislators. The reason it had been legislators previously is because then we are staffed by legislative council. So you may hear concerns that AOE doesn't want to do this. I would argue that this is a needed new area of oversight. And we cannot just leave it to the existing entities like VitalLearn, who you will hear from, I think, through AOE to self-regulate. That to the Education Policy Committee is not working. So now the bill is largely a product registry, and you can ask the Secretary of State's office about that. There is one bill advancing that looks like it's going to make it to the governor's desk on registration of franchises, I think, that came to this committee. So we have heard informally from the Secretary of State's office that to the extent practical, they can use the work they need to do under that bill to also create other drop-down options that have been contemplated this year. And that speaks to the value of having a study group that helps to look at those drop-down options to meet what was originally kind of more the house's intent. I think it has value to try to look at educational technology products in schools, but I think, as you all know, the Secretary of State's registry system is not enforceable. So it's not going to be complete or perfect data that we get going forward unless something changes.
But you can get an amendment to us.
So Rick has the language. I've been trying to find my own chair to see.
I was gonna say, is this coming from education?
It is, I mean, it has been relatively blessed by the chair, but we have been a pretty disjointed group. So I don't want to mischaracterize it. They know the gist of taking out the chatbot pause. And I just want to be clear, the chatbot pause did have a major, I wouldn't call it a loophole, but sort of a major procedural give that we thought was principled, which is that someone in your school building should be responsible for what is in front of kids and how it's being used. And so this was to say, we want districts to err on the side of not using relational AI chatbots, things that any person, including children, may perceive to be a human or a friend or a relationship. But if you are using that the principal should know about it and approve it. I think that's where you saw a lot of the emails come from. And I'll just say, I find it disappointing in the sense that I think parents are going to want to know more and more who they're supposed to talk to about what their child is accessing at school. And someone should know and be able to answer those questions.
You have an amendment. Yeah, education does. Have it come up. I'd like to have education asked it.
Yeah.
And I'm going to move us on to other witnesses today.
Okay.
And find out what.
I will go seek out my chair. Madam Chair, do you want me to come back with a vote or something possible while you're meeting?
Yeah, it would be good if you could get a vote. Efficient education.
I'd love that, because as they come and testify, I'd love to know if this new language addresses their concern and how the timing can.
I'm not going to tell you if to hear from Rick or not, but Rick does have the amendment and it is on your website in case you wanted to go forward. Or something.
I've got people that are sitting here and the committee conference is arriving in 45 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
After that. So I'm going on to Josh. Do you
Yes.
want your name there? Yes. All right.
Hi there. Yeah, thank you for the opportunity to testify on H650. So my name is Josh Blumberg. I'm the Educational Technology Program Manager at the Agency of Education. And I'm hoping that my testimony will rightly target what Senator Ram Hinsdale was pointing out in terms of amendments, because I was trying to digest it just before this meeting. I'm going to focus on two parts of that draft, right? One was around where I think it's going to create harm without producing the protections it aims for. So in terms of the registration process that's proposed in the bill.
Talking about Senator Ron Hinsdale amendment, we have not seen that.
Okay, I apologize. So I think I believe that the registry stuff has not been changed in what they were amending, and we got it sent to us. I saw it first half an hour ago. So I think that part has not changed. So I think my testimony is spot on this. So I think that registration is a bureaucracy without a purpose. So Vermont already has an infrastructure that H650 is reaching for. So in 2018, that Vermont Student Data Privacy Alliance was set up. It really is designed to address data privacy. Its charge is not larger, right? Its charges on data privacy. And it's a mechanism for managing those digital privacy agreements between vendors and districts. So the Agency of Education funds membership for every district, no cost to the district, And as of today, 51 supervisory union school districts and CTE centers participate, which is effectively every district in Vermont. And the Alliance database holds about 2,680 active digital privacy agreements between Vermont districts and the vendors. Any district can see the agreements in every other district that they've signed. And if you look at a school like a district like Harwood, Harwood nicely lists about data privacy on their website, and you can actually see a list of all their digital privacy agreements and which educational technology vendors they've formed those agreements with. The system works because it was designed by experts working in schools and the Agency of Education, as well as national experts on in-student data privacy. Vermont's leverage with vendors comes from a multi-state coalition behind the National Data Privacy Agreement. So lawyers from the Education Collaborative negotiate on behalf of districts in 11 states, including Vermont, and they regularly walk away from vendors who refuse to meet our terms. No state-only registry can replicate that leverage, especially one that doesn't have any teeth. H650's registry, by contrast, was designed without input from schools or the Agency of Education. It's a parallel infrastructure that does not require schools to use it, carries no penalty for noncompliance. Legislative Council described it on Friday as an honor system. H650 has no auditing function to confirm who has or has not registered, and it provides no information for schools when they conduct their own vetting processes of these technologies. H650's registration requirements create a burden without a benefit. The joint testimony submitted on April 30th by the Agency of Education, the Vermont Superintendents Association, the Vermont Principals Association, and the Vermont School Boards Association proposes a path that strengthens what already works, a requirement for universal participation in the alliance and statewide implementation support for districts without building a parallel registry. Draft 3.2, so this is the early one, moved away from that proposal. I'd urge this committee to look at it again. In the joint testimony, we recommend that the AOE, in concert with the VSA, Vermont Curriculum Leaders Association, Vermont Council of Special Educators, and the Vermont NEA, develop guidance on how districts implement and evaluate educational technology products. That's really important so that there's consistent standards, because we have districts that are doing amazing jobs. So establishing consistent standards across and guidance on those standards is really important. I'd welcome greater stakeholder involvement in alignment with the latest draft. What I think is important to note is there's a difference between safe and effective. So there's a website, edtechindex.org, which aggregates industry certifications as well as ESSA tiers of effectiveness for educational technology that can help evaluate a technology product for student data privacy, security, and safety. And Senator Keisha Hinsdale rightly pointed out that these are industry certificates and they're paid for by the vendors. So it limits the value of this data, but it doesn't discount it as still being useful. But it can't tell you whether or not that technology product will be effective in a particular school district. That needs to be decided by that school district in their context. So there's a process where you can do some central evaluation of safety, but in terms of educational effectiveness, we need to know the situation within that district. It's not something that as a statewide will be very successful at vetting. We also built structures into this testimony to gather data on the educational technology products utilized in schools. It's valuable work, and both the current version of H650 and our recommendations and testimony support this. We already go beyond the suggestions in the bill. We need to go further with guidance on school district vetting processes.
Okay, so Josh, I'm short on time.
Yep, I'll stop there.
Of your testimony that you don't think that this bill is necessary because there are already safeguards in place, or that the amendment is not necessary?
I think the amendment is actually very helpful. There's some good things in there, and there's some good concepts in H650, but its mechanisms aren't the most effective mechanisms they could be. And so because they're not structured right and structured with the schools, there are more effective mechanisms that can be put in place. And that's what was recommended in that testimony.
Okay, thank you. That is helpful. Committee, any questions? Not, I'm gonna move on to Sue.
Madam Chair, I would ask if Libby Bones still,
Well,
and Michael Berry could go ahead of me.
yes. Yes, yes. Okay. This is really your. Have I got the old one?
Hi, everyone. Continue this session.
Okay.
I'm Libby Bonstein, the superintendent for Montpelier Roxbury. My colleague, Mike, go ahead, Mike.
I'm Mike Berry, I'm the Director of Curriculum and Technology in Montpelier Roxbury.
And I would encourage you, this gentleman is an expert in educational technology and curriculum usage in school and what it should be and what it could be. So I would urge the committee to ask him any questions that you may have about it. And I will gladly give the floor to Mike in that area. I want to say that as this committee knows, it is a rare occurrence for the Agency of Education, the VPA, VSA, VSBA, and the NEA to be on the same terms pretty unanimously around the directions this should take. And because we're talking about something that has to do with education, I would commend the group to look towards the people who work with education the most to find direction here. One of the pieces that I'm worried about from the amendment in the working group is that there are 2 educators on that group. One proposed by the VSA and one proposed by the VPA, I believe. So we're working with educational technology and what would impact daily on a basis of a classroom. And 2 educators out of a committee of about 15, I think nowadays would be a small ratio. So that's part of the challenge with the amendment. The other challenge that I find is that there's still wording around banning chatbots. And if you looked at the original bill, the definition of a chatbot is essentially banning the internet. And that it would be a pretty big stake for the legislature to take for our schools and our children. So I would look at that section very closely. Mike, you want to add?
I would agree with what Josh presented, that the mechanics within the bill are the rub point here. The outcomes that we're seeking, better security for students, we're all on board for that. Better use of technology so that it's high impact, we're all on board for that. But the mechanisms that are built into it are somewhat impractical and really won't lead to the outcomes that you're looking for.
At this point, listener, we are at the education committee. We're either gonna find something that makes this work or it's going to die. And I think we can ask the education committee to bring us a draft. Apparently there is a draft amendment, but it's around the chat box.
It's around the working committee, I believe.
And the working committee. Okay, you're saying that the mechanisms they set up won't work. And I think we heard from Mr. Bloomberg that there are a lot of mechanisms in place that perhaps are doing the same thing. I'm still, what problem?
Are we trying to solve?
Yes.
Good question. So one of the problems with the dates that are in the bill brought to you is that they be registered by December, right? So essentially what that means is that this gentleman in my district, who's my director of instruction and technology, would be spending his entire time working to get whatever ed tech products we're doing to the registry's people, right? So make sure that they have a list of that. And he works with our multi-tiered system support. He works with our curriculum. He works with all our teachers on a daily basis. So what work would you like him to be doing? Would you like him to be collecting ed tech in the matter of transformation, or would you like him to be doing work with multi-tiered system support? So there's what work would you like our educators to be doing at this point in time? That's that important. So the dates in the bill are a little troublesome. The other piece is what exactly is the problem that we're trying to solve? So we do have the Vermont data. You're going to know the exact acronym.
The student data privacy assertion.
We have that, about 1/3 of our schools don't use that. We have very good experience with that. We could mandate everybody using that for the time being because it's already in place and it protects student data if that's the problem we're trying to solve. I think if we're talking about educational technology and its use in our schools, we need a lot more time and discussion on that topic that we shouldn't be rushing through at the end of the session with all other educational ideas on the table still.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think you just answered the question I was going to ask earlier, which is if we don't do anything and don't pass any version of this bill, then you have a mechanism already set up that you use for reviewing the use of technology and registering technology for data privacy and deciding whether that technology is what you should be using in your classrooms. Is that something? So yeah.
Yeah. So we have the Student Data Privacy Consortium, which
Yeah.
specifically targets student data privacy. And that's a pretty airtight system
Mhm.
that really establishes gate one, are we going to use this product? And as Josh said, most of our schools are using that, but not all.
Mhm.
And if you think about this bill's impact on small rural schools,
Yeah.
so we're lucky that we have the positions that we do and we have staff that we do. Other schools are struggling with staffing, administrative support. So how does this look? We have a tool that's really great. I do believe that we need more work on what are the tools we're using and what are their impact. That's one of those components of the bill that we agree with. The worry is that the wording of the bill points towards two very specific outcomes, a registry and a moratorium.
Yeah.
It doesn't allow for the working group to explore other sustainable options
Yeah.
within the educational environment.
Okay. I mean, we are about to potentially pass a bill that gives you guys a ton of work to do over the next few years. And I don't want to give you meaningless work to do that's kind of busy work for no purpose. And so I would say, Madam Chair, this doesn't feel like it's a bill that's ready for prime time, and we could turn it into a report or we could turn it into something else, but it just seems like it's really late in the session and I don't want to pass something that is going to create work that's not necessary or create the wrong kind of work. If there's work that's necessary, let's take the time to figure out what that necessary work is in a meaningful and thoughtful way with the appropriate people at the table. It is, I think, really telling that this entire group of people, of organizations, are concerned. As someone pointed out, it's not usual that they're all on the same page, so that should be noted.
What happens is to target the schools that are not using data privacy.
Yeah, I mean, that's possible, but I think your point about many of those schools are probably schools that just don't have the staffing and have the right person. Not everybody has a really highly skilled tech director that is able to. So making sure that we're not asking schools to do something that at this point they're not able to do. Maybe in a few years they would be able to do after they do other work.
Similar lines to Senator Hardy, I would just ask, when the ed, as I will refer to them, did you all chime in Senate Ed? Did they hear these concerns and still pass it out unanimously? Okay.
They didn't pass it out unanimously.
Okay.
And we did share this memo with them on April 30th.
Okay.
And it has, clear, sorry, for the record, Vermont Tenants Association, it has clear recommendation in the line of what we're talking about in the memo of like recommended language from all of us.
Vermont Principals Associations and Jay Nichols, Chelsea Myers, sorry about that.
Send it back.
Yeah, Michael, you said that our schools follow protocols, or are you talking about schools in Montpelier or Montpelier Roxbury district or Vermont or?
Schools that are a member of the Student Data Privacy Consortium,
Okay,
that is the first gate for those schools.
Yeah.
So when a product comes into their environment, if there's no data privacy agreement, if the company refuses to sign, we're out.
how many Vermont public schools are part of this?
I don't know. I
My
think Josh
understanding is
would know.
2/3 of the schools are
About
private.
2/3. Maybe Josh knows.
51 school districts have signed recent privacy agreements that are in our database. So I just went back to the last 3 years and pulled like which districts, and we were up to 51, which gets pretty close to all of them. I think that's more than 2/3. It's about 40 school districts are paying a nonprofit tech, the Education Cooperative, who has a team of lawyers. It's $1 per student. I believe Montpelier Roxbury does that. And that's super helpful. So in our suggestion of testimony was funding that for all the districts, because that's a tool to help those rural districts that are understaffed be able to manage those privacy agreements and the legal processes.
Is AOE providing outreach to the districts that are not part of the consortium?
Yes.
All right, thank you.
So far, I'm hearing it's not really necessary in most schools that there is a privacy system, that it'll take up a lot of time to do this. You can have better things to do with your time, and I think we're about to give you more things to do with your time.
Say we hold on to it, so somebody.
I'm gonna finish up the testimony, but I'm not seeing that I have the bill of the votes to get it out of here at this point. But I'm gonna hear, we have one advocate, and we have one to be meeting somewhat irregularly. I'm gonna try for around 1 o'clock every day, 1 to 1:30, and you might be able to get something done, but this is helpful. And we'll see where it goes. Anything else you think we should?
No, thank you for the opportunity. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to Mike, because he's the person.
You know where to find you. Okay, Sue, now you. Right.
Thank you very much. I'm Sue Siglowski, Executive Director for the Vermont School Boards Association, and I will be relatively brief. The mechanisms in H650 as passed by Senate Education, as you've heard, would create operational and financial challenges for schools, and that concern remains with the possible amendment. We have submitted a joint memo. It's posted on your meeting page under today's date. And it includes an alternative approach that reflects the policy intent of the bill and the on-ground realities in the schools. And that's the approach that we support.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Okay, so there is a national data privacy agreement. What? That the majority of our schools belong to.
Did y'all support it when it came out the House? Did the Senate do things to it that were more concerning?
We did not support it. Thanks. I never went to House Education. What?
It's just in the commerce.
Just in Congress.
Started as consumer protection bill.
He knows me about it, there's almost too late.
That's okay, you're up next, so.
Well, I'll be real.
Why not, you can answer questions from the hot seat.
Yeah, there you go. For the record, Jay Nichols, Senior Executive Director now, I guess, of the Vermont Principal Association. Yeah, I guess it's the right hand.
But that's not new, is it?
The right hair?
Yeah.
When I met you, I think it started.
Oh, shit.
We'll be rough now. I may have lost him.
All right, you're gonna owe me,
I
buddy.
am. So for us, it's real simple too. We ditto from what everybody else said. We're especially worried about rural schools where principals already have a lot of responsibilities. They may not have a tech person that really has easy access to them, especially if you're in a supervisory union that's serving a bunch of different districts at the same time, which are the schools that are most likely not to belong to the consortium already. We do support the idea if you can do anything, then have everybody belong to the National Data Privacy Consortium. And really, I don't have anything else to add other than it's kind of a rush policy at the end. I don't think that's a good way to do policy anyway. I'd rather see this get vetted through a thorough process and maybe it's taken up next year in a real thorough, systemic, comprehensive manner. That's all I have for you.
Are those rural schools that don't have tech directors, perhaps the ones where the kids might be more at risk because
I don't necessarily think so. Now, I'm not an expert on this. Mike Perry would be better to answer this. I have no problem having the questions off him. It's technology related. But teachers are aware of what they're showing in their classrooms. And principals are aware, curriculum coordinators are aware of what's being used in the classroom. And they're the experts and they're the professionals. I think those are the people that we should charge to be overseeing this. I just think if you ever had to go to a system where the tech directors had to like collate all this information, all that busy work, and if I'm a tech director and supervisor union, I'm gonna be doing that for 5 or 6 or 7, think in our country. I can be doing that for 11 different school districts. And it just doesn't, it seems like an awful waste of time without much benefit to it.
This question might be for Mike Barry, if I'm not mistaken, but could you describe what you're currently using for web filters, content filters in schools today? And what's the default? Can kids on most PCs on the school network go to any site out there? Or do you basically lock it down, and permit certain things, or you have to explicitly go out and exclude sites? Is it a catch-all, like where you narrowly define what can be gone to, or do you narrowly define what can't be gone to?
I think there's two explanations. One, there are all these things from little extensions that you add to your web browser all the way to the software products that we're talking about. So, we put a read and write extension on a student's device so that text can be read to them. That's a piece of software. And it's a really small piece of software. And then there's something like Panorama Education that's a big piece of software. So all of that goes through our systems. We filter with our firewall what students can get to and what they can't. We also have tools that teachers can use within a class period to filter what they can get to and what they can't.
K through 12.
K through 12. Yeah.
Are you concerned that kids are going to chatbot sites and so on school machines, on school devices during the day, and without you sort of vetting those tools, or the teachers aren't saying what tools the kids are going to?
The challenge right now is twofold. One is that students have personal devices and there are ways to get around just about every system. But two, there's a joke in the ed tech community about maybe tomorrow I'll start a startup. There's so many products just popping up, and this one's free. And if you sign up for this one, you get this one as well. And so we're just playing whack-a-mole right now. And we are doing the hard work of doing that, adding on top of it a registry component where we're trying to make sure that the little extension that I get for the student that needs assistance with reading is registered with the state of Vermont. That's the challenge point.
And none of this would affect devices that are directly connected to cellular networks, right? They have control when they're on the Wi-Fi in your schools.
Correct.
We are not going to touch personally on devices in many ways.
No, this puts an extra burden on caregivers to be the ones educating their students on safety and ed tech.
just illustration for how quickly kids can do things. We were in a motel in Massachusetts was funeral this weekend, and in order to get onto the Wi-Fi, you had to sign up for their points thing. And it said I had already signed up, but I never had a password and I couldn't get on. But my grandson down the hall, as according to his father, it took him 1 minute to hack around the required. And they got to watch TV. Or, yeah, they had the internet, but literally.
I think that's a good point. It goes to a lot of what Mike is saying. Things are changing so rapidly. And what Mike has testified and talked about in Vermont Vision, did a great job, by the way, was we need to change, help our students become careful consumers of digital literacy. And that's part of what the school's job is to do. And I think that anything that stops us from being able to do that is probably not a good step at this time.
Well, the welfare's been doing some of the mental health chatbots.
Yeah.
We'll be very concerned about mental health advice being given to kids by machines. And we're pretty sure that kids will go there.
I'll be quick because I know we're running out of time, but I want to piggyback on Senator Chitman's question regarding personal devices and being able to access the internet that way. We do have a phone ban now, correct? So is that bearing any fruit in terms of?
Well, you can probably, it's been 10 years since I've been in school as an administrator.
Yeah, we're having pretty good success with the phone ban. And students are embracing that. And there's still a lot of ways around it. There's smart glasses, there's smart watches, there's wireless earbuds. There's all sorts of things that are just popping up and we can't cover the pool forever. We really need to teach them to swim.
Okay,
But
good, thank you. Okay, Jeff Bannon. I think we're gonna have to take group pictures. Everybody actually agree.
Kumbaya.
Graduation day.
Yeah.
Good afternoon, Jeff Bannon, Executive Director for Vermont EA. I'll echo what everybody has said before. There's not much to add. We just came away from a conference for the weekend where we had Microsoft, to the founder and vice president of something or other from AI EDU. Pretty young, but really give me hope for the future. They're way smart. National expert on all the policies coming from Congress. The number of things that are coming on this issue are flooding forward. What we are very good at as adults in this arena is setting up policies without any resources for implementation. And I've not heard anybody talk about that. And so I know that James mentioned, or you asked him, and Mike just responded about the phone tech. Kids are getting around that already. You know, the devices now, my understanding from my members is, oh, they use it's a good policy. They use now the school issued device, the PC, to get around it, and they can figure out how to text with each other on that. So we're constantly whacking, this, and it pops up here and it pops up over there. So implementation for me is what I learned at this conference is going to be key going forward. There's a lot of federal things coming down the pike. I don't know which ones pass, but there's a lot of laws that Congress is debating and discussing right now. Who knows where they will go? But we support Vermont EA supports our colleagues over and superintendents, school boards, and principals in the AOE on sort of adjusting the bill as it is. But it's got a bit without it is concerning, and we are continually going to be playing whack-a-mole here. I think Mike's nodding his head, I don't know if he put words in his mouth, but that's what I'm hearing from my members. So we need to teach kids how to use technology in a safe, responsible manner at the right age and the right measures. Happy to answer any questions, but
You said a lot's coming toward us. Did you mean a lot in terms of new technologies and devices, or did you mean in terms of like, federal guidelines or laws or policies, or both?
yes.
Okay, all of it.
Right. I mean, it's changing ever increasing speed, and policies are trying to catch up with it, and states are trying to catch up with it, and some states are approaching this way or that way, and feds are trying a different approach or a similar approach. And there are a lot of federal bills being kicked around right now. I think about 20 or 24. We've got a list of all these federal bills that are kicking around Congress right now. I don't know which ones to pass.
Yeah. Okay.
Maybe they can pass something.
That's amazing.
But I mean, I think there's great concern over technology
Yeah.
and young people. The same said for adults too. I know Brookings, we have also a person from Brookings there, and she's got a nice article on chatbots right now that I haven't yet read, just limited today. And Brookings is also presenting on AI, I think it is next week. So there's really a lot of policy going on. And again, I'll revert back to we need resources. Schools need resources. Otherwise, it's going to figure out a way around it, and we're going to be always playing catch up as adults, as you found out with your grandson.
I'm sure he can hack. Yeah, and he's not the techie in the group, so. Okay,
Gotcha.
all right, any questions? All right, this red letter day, we're gonna have probably the bravest man in the room.
All yours.
Thank you.
Thank you. These are, yes. We're at the end of the session.
I completely
and
understand.
Like
Everyone's
getting
kind of
time to
tired.
get everybody in is
Yeah.
getting difficult. But
Well, I appreciate you being willing to
Yeah.
hear my testimony. My name is Patrick Lawrence from Middlebury. I'm a fifth grader in elementary school there. I'm also representing 400 Vermonters from 85 different towns who signed a letter of support for I think it's interesting to think about resources. Though we've heard that this bill would tax
these schools that are already doing so much. I would like to comment, first of all, that we spend approximately $60 million a year on ed tech, and that's a very conservative estimate. So that's it. I realize it's not necessarily, the education budget is much larger, the amount that's spent on ed, but that's not an insignificant chunk. So money is there, but in nowhere else do we spend so much and have no evidence of the efficacy of these products. So, if we're looking at broad scale trends, and I wish I had had time to pass this out to the committee, but there are NAEP scores from Vermont from 2014 to present, actually before 2014, showing that ever since we had widespread digital use, there's been a decline, a substantial decline in our testing scores.
And if you send that.
I have enough to pass around.
Oh, okay, that's, some of it's just people enough to use paper.
I have paper too.
I'm not just getting the right person.
So at the macro level, we see this in Vermont's NAEP test scores. We also, I looked for my own individual district, and since 2015, test scores have gone down by 2 grade levels in reading and 1 grade level in math. So we have seen declines, and those declines are also seen in across different states and on international tests as well. So it's not like at the macro level. At my daughter's own individual school, I looked into one of the products that they use on a daily basis for literacy, and per the company's own research, there's actually no supporting evidence for this product being effective. So, that is really not a little bit alarming, spending all this money and not actually getting results. Not to mention the fact that these products are highly gamified. And what does that teach our kids? That, if you have a screen and things are exciting and fun, but if you have to put in the hard work, then it's not fun, that things are on a piece of paper. So I think there's, that's the efficacy piece. On top of that, even though that many of these companies are party to, well, actually, most of them are party to the Student Data Privacy Consortium. I would like to note that the Student Data Privacy Consortium is actually, partnered with, it's supported by many industry partners. So that's number one. Second of all, there's no enforcement of those data privacy agreements. So 2 of the companies listed on there, IXL and PowerSchool, which Michael Berry referenced the other day on his vision talk, PowerSchool specifically had a big breach several years ago. So, that's a security fix, but privacy also, it is not enforced. So 78%, according to the Internet Safety Labs, of EdTech providers, EdTech companies, leak data or share data with third parties. That's enormous. And I think that should be highly concerning. My daughter will be heading to middle school next year, where she'll be using presumably much more EdTech, and I'm really worried that her data is going to be compromised. That's a big concern of mine. Finally, all these people who have signed in and supported this bill have told us numerous stories of not only distraction, gamification, but also more sinister things like viewing pornography, but then also being contacted by, potential predators from out of state, potentially feeding into online gambling, et cetera. So there are so many issues that we're seeing on the ground, despite the efforts of administrators and the well-intentioned efforts of administrators, teachers, principals, et cetera, to actually control these things. It is wacky. And therefore, we need to take a step back and say, we're not saying no technology, not at all. We're just asking for, number one, to know what's actually used, which, it seems like in a competent system, information shouldn't require a heavy lift to know what to use. And that lift is incumbent upon companies supplying products. It's not incumbent on the school districts. So know what's used. And second of all, set up a process whereby those products can actually be vetted. For safety, for efficacy, and for privacy. So that's really the summary of what I and many of the people in support of this bill think. And, I think there's, education is not an easy thing. And if I may make a short analogy, it's like when you're eating breakfast, you may have something like Fruit Loops that has enriched niacin, that has 50 different nutrient, vitamins, et cetera. And it has all that quantified, and it says, you might think, oh, well, like maybe I should be giving that to my kids instead of this oatmeal and a piece of fruit. Well, we all know that the oatmeal in the piece of fruit is whole. It's healthy, and it might be not quite as exciting, not as attractive, but it's actually the right choice. And so I think we need to be giving our kids that right choice, even though it might not be as entertainment value. It might make it a little, we won't be able to track things quite as well. But we need to recenter this teacher-student relationship and make that at the center of our educational efforts. I would conclude by saying, I know you all are very concerned and want to create the best outcomes for our students. But if this bill doesn't move forward, essentially what it says to people like myself is that this is too complicated. Even though we know that there's all these privacy violations, we know that there's no evidence of efficacy, it's just too much for us to take on right now. And to me, quite frankly, I am considering sending my daughter to private school on account primarily because of this. I don't want her, if I have a choice between oatmeal and Fruit Loops, I want to give her the oatmeal and a piece of fruit. It just seems like a fairly simple choice. And I think that's what the other supporters of the bill are thinking as well. So I appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate your testimony and hearing from you many times over the last few months. No, that's okay. I appreciate your persistence, and I also share many of the goals that you just laid out, and prefer the oatmeal and fruit to the Fruit Loops for sure. And you can ask my kids, but I'm not sure that what you want this bill would do. And so I think what you're hearing our hesitancy from the committee is that it's really late in the session. This bill has a number of really key partners in education that are concerned about how it would be implemented, didn't go through the education committee in the House. And we are about to potentially pass a major education bill that will give a lot of work to school districts. So it feels like we need to step back and say, how do we actually accomplish the goals? Because I don't think if we pass the bill, you would see, and that would not make any difference in this chart.
It would take some time.
And so I think we need to really think about what are the goals, who are the right people at the table, what is it actually an effective way to deal with educational technology and to get to the oatmeal, the good oatmeal that we want. I'm not really sure that H650 in this form that it is right now, especially, is that.
I'm glad the analogy stuck with you. But if I may comment real quickly, the Senate Education Committee spent quite a bit of time on this, and they heard a lot of testimony from experts in support of this bill. You have, in this short 1 hour window, only heard testimony opposing the bill. I would suggest that at the very least, there be an opportunity. I know we're at the end of the session, maybe some opportunity to give more testimony, or at least just strictly look at the financial implications, given that this is a Senate Finance Committee. We spend a lot on education technology. That is the remit here. And maybe go back and look at what is presented in favor of it. I think saying that we have it covered is just simply not true. And to presume that just because this tech exists, we have to use it. We all were educated. I presume most of us were educated at a time when we did not have this technology, or didn't have very limited digital technology. And we all we figured it out to varying degrees, right? The heads of tech companies, they were educated in a time without much of this technology, and they figured it out. And they send their kids to Waldorf school where there's no technology. Right. So I think there's, this is a really important issue. And I think that right now it essentially feels like we're doing nothing. Right. And I think I understand concerns about the bill and that it would be a lot, but really the vetting process, if we're not doing it, that means that we're not evaluating this technologies for efficacy, for privacy, for security. And that just doesn't seem sufficient. And I would just note that it wouldn't be implemented right away, that it would just set up a committee to essentially propose those vetting standards, which I think is a good first step.
It might be better to do that at perhaps a state level, I think right now, Barry has to ask schools to do more because we're about to ask them to do a lot more. And to find another way to do the vetting. Because I don't think it's the vetting. It's a burden it will put on the schools at this point in time.
May I ask what burden that would be?
Time is money. And if you take the schools that have technology people, if they have to spend their time doing this, this is time they're not spending with the kids, teaching them how to use technology when they go home and can get on anything they want. And I think, and we have schools that don't have technology directors, so I don't know who do what. But I think, yes, we probably do need to do something. I am just very reluctant to send out a bill. And this, I will tell you, the first time a bill arrived here, that it wasn't our jurisdiction, but that all of the involved organizations that I have no reason to distrust are not working in the best interest of the kids, oppose them. I mean, we weren't joking. I can't remember when everybody in this room was on the same, on the same place. And I think that it's dangerous to send out legislation that is always going to be, one or two naysayers, but that the majority of the people that are going to be affected don't support. And those are the same, I mean, if it were the tech companies in here, would say, fine, say your piece, go home. It's not the tech. And I think that's concerning. And I don't know, no.
Okay.
We're not voting this out right now. And so I think that's it, not that we don't share the concern. I think that there should be a clearinghouse. I think we also recommend that sometimes it's the floor of the forbidden fruit. That the more we ban technology, the more attractive it's going to be to kids. And they do seem to be able to access it. So we will see. We will see. We were out of time.
Just to comment, maybe you can follow up with me afterwards, the ed group has put forward alternative language. I don't know.
I have not been able to look at it.
Yeah.
So that was it. So
Well, thank you very much.
thank
I
you.
appreciate it.
And thank you for persistence. That will pay off. Okay, you can, all the three of us go home, wherever else you're supposed to be.
More agenda for us, that are you, are you canceling?
Judiciary.
Yeah, it's coming back at 3:30 to so don't send Chris Matos.
Sorry, again, I even have to leave to another meeting.
Patrick, if you,
Oh.
I'd love to hear your thoughts on this.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, thank you so much.
At 2, I am surprised.
Same side, David.
What's that?
At the same.
Probably, but that's okay.
That's funny to me.
That's all right, yeah.
Yes, that's the home. One back.
Banking, insurance and securities. Okay, they sent back. So we will try and be here.
Yeah, can we just, did you guys do a walkthrough of the banking insurance bill?
No, it just,
Okay.
oh, wait, no.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, you did.
Yes, we
Can
did.
we
That
just
we did
draw-
yesterday.
You can do it on the board tomorrow.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, well, no, we have to stay like, we did a straw poll yesterday.
Oh,
This
okay.
was.
Oh, I was
We
told we
did, no, we
didn't.
didn't get.
Okay.
We could.
We did.
You wanted to wait.
We didn't do it.
Okay, this, yes, there
Yeah,
was no objection.
It was the kiosks and then the
the vendor things, I can't remember what they're called, but I will find out for the floor and I'm happy.
Maybe five.
Okay, it's, there have been complaints,
Yeah.
the House actually put it in.
Yes.
Banking insurance wrote it. They say they have had some serious
Yeah.
complaints.
That's what I heard too.
That
Yeah.
is
Oh, the
basically,
lender, the sort of, debt lender.
they don't lend you money. They take
She was on.
either a percentage of your profits, then when you're starting out, when you're naive, this sounds good until 5 years down the road, you're making a whole lot more profit than you ever borrowed from them.
I got around the conference.
Doing
Okay.
a straw.
We're all, okay. We all,
We're gonna straw poll on the.
We straw poll 640.
this is the amendment that came back from
Yeah.
House. 686, banking and insurance.
648.
648 as passed by the House.
Yes, and that, we sent it back to them. They sent it back with further proposals.
So we sent a proposal and then they have House voted.
And yesterday, the nodding was that we would concur. They added,
We good?
okay, that's,
Okay,
yeah.
just so I can report it on the floor. You good with it? Okay. All right. Thank you guys.
Okay, and we are going to have to
Get it on.
get together to do appointments, if you haven't. I have emailed her. I've got back. It is. I don't think that.
I got.
We've got Jill coming in at 3:30, check back here at 3:30. You may be, it's been suggested that we just ask property valuation to update. They did a study of equine farms in 2013. Staff is still, you looking for me?
No, are we still going? I'm sorry. I thought we were.
Anyway, we could ask, property valuation to just update the 2013 and see if we still can't get hard numbers. It's still gonna put it maybe not 11 million, but 3 or 4 million in the edge fund this year is not something to sneeze at.
The people that
Okay.
testified yesterday thought it would be upwards of 1.1 million.
Well, see, that's what,
They work from PDR and tax.
that's, yeah,
Yeah.
that's their envelope doing, not, and I think we need something a little
JFOs.
heavier than to do that at this time of the year. I mean, that bill came very late, so. I think we will get together at some point, maybe tomorrow, and wrap things up.
Are we supposed to come back at 3:30 today?
That's the question.
You have Jill Remick coming at 3:30.
I know, and I am supposed to. I can reschedule that. Can you reschedule, Joe, till tomorrow? I may be free, or you can go without me. They're trying to schedule another education.
4:30.
It's at 4:30?
Yep.
Okay, to be back here at 3:30,
Okay.
if you're free.
You guys are conferencing now, right?
We're conferencing
Okay.
at 2.
Yeah, yes,
Okay.
that's why I'm trying to leave, so.
Everybody, please